Hi students, we are going to start new chapter of the NEET syllabus. Chapter number 14 from NCERT, Respiration in Plants, and for state board students of 11th standard, chapter number 13, Respiration and Energy Transfer. Every living organism required energy for their survival as well as for day-to-day life processes like excretion, digestion, absorption, respiration requires energy, reproduction requires energy, and that energy is obtained from cellular respiration. In 12th standard, we for state board students, we will study respiratory system, human respiratory system, in which we are going to study how oxygen is transported from atmosphere to each and every cell. But when oxygen gets entered into the cell, what happens with that oxygen and the food material reached inside the cell, we are going to study those processes in this chapter. So what is respiration? Respiration and photosynthesis are actually opposite processes. The product of respiration are reactants of photosynthesis and vice versa, we can say. In photosynthesis, plants and cyanobacteria can produce their own food material by using sunlight. Plant can use sunlight. Some photosynthetic bacteria which are chemosynthetic can use energy from the chemical reaction to produce their own food material. But in plants, sunlight is the ultimate source of energy, and from by using sunlight they can produce ATP and NADPH2, which are asymmetric power, and that ATP and NADPH2 helps in Kelvin cycle. We studied glucose get produced due to the ATP and NADPH2. REDP is the first carbon dioxide acceptor. Blah things we already covered in photosynthesis lectures. Now in respiration, the product of photosynthesis, that is glucose, when consumed by living organisms, what happens with the glucose, we are going to study in this chapter. Okay, so what is respiration? It is the catabolic process, while photosynthesis is the anabolic process. Respiration is a catabolic process in which complex substrates are oxidized to convert it into a simple components, and during this conversion energy is produced to generate biological energy. Why complex substrates get converted into simple components? To produce biological energy, that is ATP. Okay, so this chapter actually focus on cellular respiration. Inside the cell, what happen? Okay, cellular respiration are of two types: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration, in which oxygen is used or oxygen is involved. Anaerobic respiration, in which oxygen is not used or not involved. Okay, aerobic respiration takes place in mitochondria, while anaerobic respiration takes place in cytoplasm. When anaerobic respiration occurs, it can produce only 2 ATP from the glucose. One glucose molecule, 2 ATP is generated in anaerobic respiration. In aerobic respiration, 38 ATP molecules are generated. Aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, these are the two processes by means of which living organisms can produce energy for their survival. The complex living organisms, higher living organisms, requires more energy because many life processes occurring simultaneously, many metabolic reactions takes place inside the cell simultaneously, and they require energy. So Anaerobic respiration cannot fulfill the demand of living organisms, higher or complex living organisms. Hence, they require or they proceed with the aerobic respiration. While the simple organisms, simple forms of life like bacteria can be survived with the help of anaerobic respiration, because only 2 ATP energy is generated, and which will fulfill the demand of the energy in the simple forms of life like bacteria. Okay, so mitochondria is very important cell organelle for aerobic respiration. We are going to discuss the ultrastructure of mitochondria. Mitochondria consists of two membranes. It is a membrane-bound cell organelle. Outer membrane is highly permeable and contains large number of pores, having a less number of proteins and phospholipids. Outer membrane. While inner membrane is selectively permeable, and inner membrane having a folds, infoldings. There are many infoldings on the inner membrane. These infoldings are called as cristae. On the inner side of a cristae, there are small particles. That small particles are known as F1 particles or oxysomes. This one is a oxysome or F1 particle. Outer membrane, I already told you, it is highly permeable. Inner membrane is selectively permeable. Okay. And mitochondria may be spherical in some cells or maybe rod shape in some cells. Outer and inner membrane having a space. That space is called as intermembrane space. Intermembrane space. Intermembrane space is also known as C site, while the space inside the inner membrane, is called as M site, which is filled up with the colloidal matrix called as mitochondrial matrix. That mitochondrial matrix contains ribosomes. And the ribosomes are, we already know, 70S types. In mitochondria, ribosomes are 70S types. Mitochondrial matrix also contains DNA. That DNA is called as mDNA. M for mitochondria. So it is a mitochondrial DNA or mDNA. Okay. Mitochondrial matrix contains enzyme for Krebs cycle. माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल मैट्रिक्स में जो एंजाइम रहेंगे वो क्रेब्स साइकिल के लिए एंजाइम जो रिक्वायर्ड रहते हैं वो सारे एंजाइम माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल मैट्रिक्स में रहते हैं. एंड द इनर मेम्ब्रेन व्हिच हैविंग infoldings called as cristae, if I magnify some part of the inner membrane here, this some part of the inner membrane here, inside part is called as M site, while outside part is called as C site. Okay, so on the M side, in the inner membrane, there is the specialized protein get embedded in the inner membrane. That specialized protein is called as oxysome or F1 particle or F1 F0 particle, you can say. Okay, that F from the name of the scientist Fernandez-Morgan particle. F1 particle, that is Fernandez-Morgan particle. Actually, this specialized protein consists of three parts: head, stalk, and base. Head is also known as F1, while the base is known as F0. And F0, this is the site for ETS, electron transport system. So on the inner membrane, if I magnify the small part of the inner membrane, I magnified it. On M side there is a F1, and on the embedded part is stalk and base. They are also known as F0 site, which is for electron transport system. So what is this ETS? What is Krebs cycle? What is glycolysis? We will discuss in next lecture. Benda gives the name mitochondria. There are three important scientists regarding to mitochondria. The name given by Benda. Alcana is the scientist who gives name bioplastid to the mitochondria. Gives name bioplastid to mitochondria. Okay, and the very important scientist Kolliker discovered mitochondria. Kolliker discovered mitochondria. Okay, this is basic information about the mitochondria. In next lecture, we will discuss the further details of this chapter. Thank you.